Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking something that affects, well, pretty much every single one of us. We're talking about the invisible prison of public opinion. If you've ever felt held back by what other people might think about you, stick around because this explainer is going to be incredibly liberating. Let me ask you this. Have you ever stayed silent just because you were afraid of being judged? We've all been there, right? You're in that meeting or maybe at a family dinner, and you have something really valuable to say, but you swallow your words. You literally let the fear of a raised eyebrow or maybe a whispering voice completely silence your own. Or let's take it even deeper. Have you ever avoided chasing your true dreams because you were worried about what others might say? Maybe you've changed the way you dress, how you speak, or even who you are at your absolute core. And honestly, the most tragic part of all this? We often do it just to get approval from people who probably weren't even thinking about us in the first place. It's crazy. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Invisible Prison. Escaping Humanity's Oldest Trap. You see, the fear of judgment isn't some new modern problem. It is quite literally one of humanity's oldest traps. It's an invisible prison. But over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Stoic philosophers actually discovered a key to walk right out of it. Imagine carrying an invisible audience with you everywhere you go. Before you speak, you ask, oh, what will they think? Before you post something online, you wonder, what if nobody likes it? Well, the Stoics looked at this exact behavior and called it exactly what it is: slavery. Now, not slavery of the physical body, but slavery of the mind. Because here's the real danger. Approval is deeply addictive. The more you seek it, the less authentic you become. Slowly, and without even realizing it, you stop living your own life and you start living out someone else's expectations. I want you to really let this powerful piece of advice from Epictetus sink in. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish. Now, Epictetus was actually born a slave and was routinely mocked by society, yet he found absolute mental liberation. He wasn't telling us to go out and just intentionally act foolish, right? No, he was teaching us that true freedom begins the very second you stop needing everyone else's approval. Which brings us to Section 2, the Emperor's Burden. Even absolute power cannot stop criticism. So, let's move from a former slave to an emperor, just to prove how incredibly universal this whole thing is. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire on earth, yet even absolute power could not protect him from the court of public opinion. The sheer volume and variety of the criticism Marcus carried was just staggering. You'd think being the most powerful man in the world would shield you, right? Nope. Wrong. The public constantly questioned his decisions. His own seasoned generals doubted his military strategies. He was betrayed by close politicians, mocked relentlessly by his enemies, and he even faced bitter disappointment from his own family members. He carried the weight of an entire empire while millions judged his every single move. But in his private journal, the one we now know as the Meditations, Marcus wrote down this really profound realization. He said, "People will criticize you no matter what." He observed this simple, unbreakable rule of society. Think about it. If you're kind, well, someone's going to call you weak. If you're confident, someone will call you arrogant. If you succeed, they'll say you were just lucky. And if you fail, yep, they'll say they expected it all along. So the absolutely crucial point here is how we shift our internal dialogue. Marcus realized you simply cannot control another person's opinion, and honestly, trying to do so only steals your peace. So he stopped asking, do they approve of me, where your value depends on fleeting applause. Instead, he started asking, did I act with wisdom? That single shift, it changes your entire life, because now your value depends entirely on your own character, which is literally the only thing you actually control. Moving on to Section 3, pleasing everyone is impossible. The old man, the boy, and the donkey. To really drive home the absolute absurdity of satisfying the crowd, ancient Stoic teachers often shared this famous story. A man and his grandson are traveling with a donkey. First, they both just walk beside it. Well, the crowd laughs and calls them fools for having a donkey and not riding it. So the boy climbs on. But then a new crowd calls the boy disrespectful for making the old man walk. So they switch. The old man rides, but now people complain he's a selfish elder making a child walk. Desperately trying to fix it, they both get on the donkey, and wouldn't you know it, the crowd screams that they are animal abusers. Finally, trying to satisfy everyone, they actually pick up and carry the donkey themselves. And the crowd laughs harder than ever. The lesson here is so timeless. Trying to please everyone is the absolute fastest way to lose yourself. All right, section 4, why we care so much, the biological roots of our fear. So if we know all of this logically, why is it so incredibly difficult to just ignore other people's opinions? Well, you can stop blaming yourself right now because the roots of this fear aren't just psychological, they are deeply biological. Thousands of years ago, back in ancient tribes, being rejected by your group literally meant death. Acceptance meant safety, isolation meant danger. Your brain evolved to care what the tribe thought for pure survival. And that instinct, it still exists today, but modern society has dangerously amplified it. I mean, we now carry our tribes in our pockets. Every notification, every like, and every single comment triggers that ancient survival software, making us feel like digital applause is somehow a measurement of our actual worth. But the Stoics teach us that this feeling is a complete illusion. Your worth cannot be counted in followers or decided by comments from total strangers. As Epictetus taught, we have to split our lives into two distinct categories. On one side, the things you actually control, like your character and your wisdom. And on the other side, things you completely do not control, like strangers' opinions and likes. Other people's opinions strictly belong in category 2, period. The moment you truly accept this, I promise you an enormous weight simply vanishes from your shoulders. Let's jump into section 5, Seneca's secret. How a wealthy statesman handled relentless hate. To see this put into action under extreme pressure, let's look at our third historical Stoic figure, Seneca. As one of Rome's wealthiest men, a close advisor to emperors, and a highly influential figure in politics, he naturally faced just a mountain of relentless hate and envy. People called him a hypocrite, they envied his wealth, and honestly, they hated him just for being successful. But instead of fighting every single accusation and completely exhausting himself, Seneca relied on one breathtakingly simple framework. When faced with criticism, he just asked himself one question: is it true? That one question creates literally the most peaceful mental flowchart you will ever use. Think about it. If the criticism was true, he didn't get angry. He simply took the feedback and improved himself. And if the criticism wasn't true, he completely ignored it. Just imagine the absolute freedom of living this way. No endless arguments, no desperate need to constantly defend yourself. You just turn the opinions of others into mere information rather than commands that dictate your emotions. It's a real game changer. Which brings us to our final section. Section 6, 5 practices for freedom. Actionable Stoic habits to start today. Now that we've seen how the great Stoics viewed the world, it's time to actually build this into our own lives. We've got 5 actionable, everyday habits that you can start using the minute this explainer is over. Practice number 1 is incredibly powerful in our super fast-paced world. Pause before reacting. When you feel that sudden sting of judgment, just physically stop. Take one deep breath, remind yourself that not every single opinion out there deserves your precious energy. You absolutely have the right to simply not react. Practice number 2 brings back that ultimate Stoic filter we talked about earlier. Whenever you're stressing out over what someone thinks, just ask yourself, can I control this? And since you can never, ever truly control what happens inside someone else's head, the answer is usually going to be no. And if the answer is no, well, you actively practice letting it go. Moving on to practice number 3, let's channel the Emperor Marcus Aurelius for a second. Judge yourself by your values, not by the applause of the crowd. Popularity is such a fragile, fleeting thing, isn't it? It can vanish literally overnight. Integrity, however, is built on your own internal character, and that is going to last a lifetime. Practice number 4 is honestly so reassuring, especially if you're out there charting your own unique path. Accept misunderstanding. As you grow, as you learn and change, not everyone is going to understand your journey. But the really beautiful part is they absolutely don't have to. Your responsibility isn't to manage their thoughts about your life. Your responsibility is just to live your life well. And finally, practice number 5. This is probably the most dramatic and humbling Stoic practice of them all. Remember mortality. Just zoom way, way out. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that everyone, both the people showering you with praise and the people throwing bitter criticism at you, they will all one day be gone. When you view life through the vast lens of mortality, other people's opinions suddenly seem incredibly, incredibly small. Because at the end of your life, you're not going to regret disappointing strangers. You will only regret disappointing yourself. The strongest person in the room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who simply no longer needs everyone else's approval. So the next time fear whispers to you, "Oh, what will people think?" I want you to answer back with the wisdom of the Stoics. Their opinion is theirs. My character is mine. So to wrap up this explainer, I want to pose one final, really vital question to you. What is one opinion you've decided to stop letting control your life?
Let me know down in the comments. Keep learning, keep focusing on what you can control, and until next time, keep walking the Stoic path.